Be with you all on today's edition of the program You and Your Health, which is the first edition for the year 2023. We all know that the program is meant to sensitize the population on some health-related matters, and we definitely know prevention is better than cure, and that's why we decided to come up with this program in order to help you televiewers be aware of some certain diseases and how you can better fight this disease and not become a victim. That's why today we have chosen an important topic, and that is cervical cancer. Today we'll be looking at how cervical cancer is common in Cameroon. Cervical cancer is the fourth most common cancer among women and the fourth type of cancer causing death globally. In Cameroon, cervical cancer is the second most common cancer in the country after breast cancer. Statistics reveal that at least 8 women are diagnosed of cervical cancer in a day, and 5 out of the 8 die of the disease. We'll be telling you more about cervical cancer after this short break. Stay back. Welcome back. With me in the studio is Dr. Simon Manga. He is a reproductive health specialist. Good day, doctor. It is a pleasure having you on the program today.
Thank you.
So, doctor, today we are going to be talking about cervical cancer. Before we get to how common it is right here in Cameroon, I want you to tell us more about cervical cancer. What is it all about?
Yeah, cervical cancer is simply cancer of the cervix. The cervix is the lower portion of the womb, the uterus. Now the uterus is like a pear-shaped structure, a pear-shaped organ. So if you take a pear and infect, the lower portion of the pear is like protected by the cervix.
And so what can cause that?
Yes, the cervix can be affected by a virus, can be infected with a cancer-causing virus, and that virus is called human papilloma virus, which is commonly abbreviated as HPV. So that is the primary cause of cervical cancer. The virus is sexually transmitted, and so far it is the most sexually transmitted organism worldwide.
When you talk about the most sexually transmitted organism worldwide, does it mean a man can equally suffer without even without having a cervix?
Yeah, the man does not have a cervix, but the virus is sexually transmitted. A man can be infected with it. For a man, it may not cause cancer of the cervix, but it can cause other problems. It can cause cancer of the anus, it can cause cancer of the penis. But anyway, cancer of the penis is rare. It's not as common as cancer of the cervix.
And now, let's now look at some warning signs. How can I tell I am suffering with that disease?
Yeah, before even getting to the warning signs, the main important thing to know is that the disease is a very slow disease to progress.
Okay.
And that when you get infected with this virus, it takes a number of years for the virus to cause changes on your cervix. The changes that the virus will cause on the cervix is what we'll call a pre-cancer. It doesn't go directly to cause a cancer. Mm-hmm. It causes a pre-cancer, and that pre-cancer takes about 10 years to develop into an invasive cancer. So during the period of the pre-cancerous stage, there is no sign, there is no symptom. So there is no need for women to wait for a sign or symptom before they go for screening, they go for checkup. Women should check up all the times, as healthy as they are, because the pre-cancer has no sign or symptom. And during screening, when the pre-cancer is diagnosed, it is treated, and the cure rate is almost 100%. So that makes cervical cancer very preventable. In fact, the disease is can be prevented. That is why the World Health Organization has come up with a strategy to eliminate cervical cancer. That is going to be the first cancer to be eliminated worldwide. And I said by 2030, cervical cancer should become history.
If you say it can easily be prevented, why is it that 5 out of 8 women who are diagnosed with this disease die?
That is the problem. Globally, a woman dies every 2 minutes from cancer of the cervix. And by the end of a day, a single day, at least over 700 women die from a disease that is highly preventable. And 90% of these deaths are occurring in low and middle income countries. It is not a big problem in high income countries, but in low and middle income countries, it is a big problem. That is why it is regrettable that women should be dying in this number from a disease that can be eliminated, that can be almost completely prevented.
You talked about high and low income countries. Why is it that lots of women die more in low income countries than the high income countries? We lack the specialists, we lack the hospitals. Why?
Yeah. The disease has a lot of risk factors, and some of those risk factors are associated with poverty. That is one thing. But the key thing is that in the West, they have been doing screening for decades, for several years, since the development of a pap smear. They have been doing it routinely in most of their countries to women. But pap smear has really not worked in our setting, because it requires sophisticated laboratory. To set up a laboratory that will be able to run pap smear is very costly, and if you have the laboratory, to get the personnel to run the test is also another issue. So it's not something that can be done just that easily. Like in Cameroon, there should be very few pathology laboratories, maybe mostly located in big towns, that can run pap smear. And so it is not available to the country, to the general population, especially to those who live in the interior areas.
You talked about the pap smear. Who is eligible to do that?
Well, now, if we are talking about the pap smear, we are talking about cervical cancer screening already. You know, there are different methods of screening, so many methods, and the pap smear is just one of those methods.
Okay.
Yeah. So if I want to talk about who is eligible, I should be talking about who is eligible for screening.
Exactly.
Like not just pap smear.
Exactly.
Yeah. In fact, when we talk about screening in the first place, what does screening mean? Screening means you are checking a healthy population. So who is eligible for screening is, we said, a healthy women. If you are healthy, you are eligible. If you are a woman, you are eligible. In Cameroon, the screening age begins at 25. So any woman at the age of 25 should start doing cervical cancer screening. There are women up by 30, they have not done. By 40, they have never been screened. It is too late. You have to be screened immediately.
Okay. For those who are just joining us on the program, know you are watching. For those who are on TV, and for those who are listening on radio, or you're listening to the program You and Your Health aired on Equinoxe Radio Multimedia, and we are talking about cervical cancer. To participate in the program, you can call the following numbers: 655 511111 or 652-025050. Those are the following numbers which you can call and equally ask your questions as far as cervical cancer is concerned. Right now, you talked about the virus. What are some other major factors that can lead to cervical cancer apart from the main virus you mentioned?
Yeah, the virus, that's the human papilloma virus, is a principal cause. That is a major driver of cervical cancer. And there are also some cofactors, we call these cofactors, that if they are present, it enables the virus to really, to take up that journey very easily. And these are things like, first of all, this virus is a sexually transmitted organism. So people with multiple sexual partners are already at risk of acquiring the virus.
Yeah.
Or not only women with multiple sexual partners. A woman who has a partner that has multiple sexual partners is equally at risk, because the risk is almost the same. Like a woman who has just one partner and the partner has 10 partners.
Exactly, and brings it back home.
Yes, the risk is almost the same like a woman who herself has 10 partners. So multiple sexual partners is a risk. And then the time of onset of sexual intercourse is a risk. Women who start sexual intercourse earlier has higher risk of developing the disease.
When you talk about earlier, that's what age?
Early, just take for example, a woman who starts sexual intercourse at the age of 16, 17, compared to a woman who starts at the age of 30. That woman who starts at the age of 30 has lower risk for the disease. Now, when a woman enters puberty, there are some changes, some physiological changes that takes place on her cervix. And that those changes that takes place during puberty, they predispose the cervix to infection with the HPV. And so if a woman has sex during that period when she's turning to puberty, or during that years, that age, you know, it's not a fixed age, it's a range. To some, it could be 15, 16, 17, 18 years, but that age range. So they have high risk of being infected because of the changes that are taking place in the cervix. And those changes promote infection, not only HPV, but all type of sexually transmitted infection, including HIV. They are at high risk if they start sexual intercourse early, when their cervix is undergoing some type of transformation. I don't really want to go detailing and explaining
it's good.
about that.
It's good for people to really understand what it's all about. It's good.
Okay, there is something that is called ectropion. Ectropion appears on the cervix and it disappears. The ectropion is like, in a very simple term, it's like a wound, a physiological wound, not like it's a wound caused by an infection or by trauma. It's just supposed to happen as part of the developmental process. It's not a wound, but in simple terms, I can say it's like a wound because the cervix is raw, it's exposed, and because of that rawness of the cervix, infection can easily penetrate here. So women who have sexual intercourse after that process has ended, when that ectropion has come and gone, taste and their risk is lower or is reduced. And then also women who deliver many children, like from 5 and above, they are equally at risk. And the simple reason is that after every delivery, this ectropion occur again, and so it makes that cervix very fragile for infection. Then apart of that, we have other risk factors like smoking, like maybe having a partner who is not circumcised. Yes, if you have a partner who is not circumcised, it's a risk factor.
How?
Because if you are not circumcised, it means that the prepuce is there, and that creates a sac which can harbor microorganism, not only HPV but any other organism which is sexually transmitted. Such a person can acquire high dose. You know, when we talk about infection, the dose of the infection, like say for example the HPV we are talking about, the dose of the HPV that a woman gets infected with also contributes to the progress of the disease. So if the quantity of HPV that you are infected with is reduced, that also reduces your chances. But if it is high, then it increases the chances that you may develop the disease. So a man with a prepuce who is infected with HPV will likely transmit high doses of this HPV to the partner, because that prepuce will store high amount of the virus.
Okay. So now, is there a possibility for a woman suffering with cervical cancer to get pregnant and later give birth normally?
Yeah, when we talk about cervical cancer, I really want to look at it from 2 dimensions. Cervical cancer itself is a serious disease, life-threatening. But if you want to talk about the pre-cancer, I like to talk about the pre-cancer more than the cancer, because that is what we are looking for in order to prevent cervical cancer.
Exactly, that's the main thing.
You see, if the pre-cancer is there, it can be destroyed. So, can a woman get pregnant with pre-cancer? Yes. If you have a pre-cancer, there is no sign, no symptom. Your life goes on normally. You get pregnant, you deliver. A woman can even deliver a number of children with a pre-cancer, because the pre-cancer is slow to progress. It takes time. It progresses slowly over a couple of years. But if it is a cancer, can a woman also get pregnant if she has a cancer? Yes, it's possible, because even the cancer itself is slow. There are women that have come for screening and they have been diagnosed already with invasive cancer, because the cancer was there and they were not even aware.
It doesn't mean
because when the cancer starts manifesting, that it starts bringing out signs and symptoms, it's already an indication that it's advanced. But at early stages, there will be no sign, there will be no symptom.
How often should one get screened?
The screening or the duration of screening depends on the tests and the results. Now, if you do a test, for example, let me just say today, the most recommended test for cervical cancer screening is a HPV DNA. That's a HPV testing. And unfortunately, this is not quite available in many low-income countries.
Including Cameroon, right?
Including Cameroon. But we do it. It's not like it cannot be done. It is being done in Cameroon, but it's not widely available. So that is the test. So if a woman really wants to do a test for cervical cancer,
that's the main test she's supposed to carry out.
That is the test she's supposed to do.
Okay.
Because the WHO is saying that for us to eliminate cervical cancer, women should be screened with high-performance tests. Our talk of high-performance tests is HPV. As of, I think 2020 or maybe 2021, WHO recommended that all setting, no matter the test you are using for cervical cancer screening, they should transition to HPV testing. And now, the HPV is testing by the virus. So we collect a swab from the vagina, they run the test in the laboratory, and if the test is positive, then now the woman comes for what they call a triage. That is, you come now for examination to look at your cervix, if there is a precancerous lesion. Okay, now if your HPV test is negative, the next appointment should be 5 years. You do your screening again in 5 years' time.
Okay.
But if you have an HPV test that is positive and you don't have a lesion or you have no precancer on your cervix, then you need to be checked frequently, maybe every 2 years, to make sure that the virus is not causing
any harm to the body. Okay. Yeah. So now we'll talk about the test. Why is this test carried out? Can any doctor do that, or there are some specific specialists for that?
The test itself is not a big thing to be done. It can be done in any hospital setting. The issue is the equipment. How to get the equipment to do the test is costly, and I know there are very few of these. There are very few centers that have this equipment to run HPV in Cameroon. I know during interviews like this, they will not like us to be calling names of this hospital, that hospital.
Okay, but they are available, right?
They are available, but they are few.
Very few.
Yes, but apart of HPV testing, there are routine cervical cancer screening testing that goes on. Like this test are called a visual inspection. Visual inspection with acetic acid, visual inspection with glucose iodine. It's a very simple test that WHO recommended for low and middle income countries. And for a couple of years now, I think since 2013, that test has been recommended. And it's being done I can say it's almost every part of the country. For years we have been doing that test. It's a simple test where you use acetic acid. You just pour it on the cervix, and within 2 minutes you get your result. Because if there is precancer on the cervix and you put acetic acid there, acetic acid is vinegar, which is very available everywhere.
Yeah.
The vinegar that we use for salad, can use it to do your cervical cancer screening. And you pour it on the cervix, and within 2 minutes you inspect the cervix. Are there any changes? Are there any white patch there? You see the results right there. So does it mean if I notice a white patch on my cervix, that means there's something? Yes, some especially. Even minus the application of acetic acid, any white patch, any whitish lesion on the cervix, on the vagina is suspicious. But you cannot see a cervix. You can only come to the hospital.
Only the doctor. Okay,
yes,
that's right.
To the examination. That's why you have to come for screening.
Exactly. So now, what are some of the treatment options as far as Cameroon is concerned? You have some few seconds or few minutes, yes.
Yeah, the treatment, I'm talking about treatment for precancer.
Yes.
Because this is really where I'm focused on. The treatment for precancer is very effective, and is close to 100% effective. If you have a precancer, like, it can just be treated just there, and there are two techniques of treating precancers. If the precancer is of a lower grade, you can treat it with cryotherapy. Cryotherapy is a device that can freeze the cervix, destroy the precancerous lesions with ice. There's also another device they call thermal ablation, which uses heat to burn the precancerous lesions. So these two are used to treat lower grade lesions. But for higher grade lesions, they will need to be treated by excision. There is what they call loop electrosurgical excision. So we cut off the affected portion of the cervix, and that treatment is more effective even. And then when you cut like that, the good news is that within 3 months, the cervix will regenerate. It will grow back normally, but you have removed the affected portion that had the precancer. What advice do you have for those watching us as far as cervical cancer is concerned before end the program? Yeah, the advice that cervical cancer is very preventable, and it's a disease that can be eliminated. And prevention are in two folds: primary prevention, secondary prevention. All what I've been talking on from the beginning has been secondary prevention, but primary prevention is vaccination. Vaccination against the human papilloma virus. And we vaccinate young girls. The vaccine is available in Cameroon and is free of charge. If it's free, does it mean someone who is already suffering the disease, is there a possibility for that person to get vaccinated? No, the vaccine is not to cure the disease. Okay. Not to cure the virus. It does not kill the virus. It prevents. That's why the vaccine is best given to children aged 9 to 14. Receive the vaccine, and it prevents you, or you become sexually active later in life, from being a victim of the disease, contaminated with the virus. Okay, that was Dr. Simon Manga, a reproductive health specialist, and that's where we end today's edition of the program Your Health aired on Equinoxe Radio Multimedia. For presentation, I am Immaculate Fogwe, and I received technical assistance from Ephraim Yemeli. Have a lovely day in the company of more programs on Equinoxe Radio and, of course, television. So long.